Hello and welcome back to Space Engineers on the Xbox, on the Series X. And just like for real, I'm melting, and so is the planet of Pertum. Welcome to my save on Pertum. This was my mod showcase save, which was set up in Creative, but it has now been switched over to Survival. Somebody today asked a question on the Facebook group about survival mode and the game itself. They're new to the game, they want to learn how to play, and they asked whether or not it was better to play in creative or in survival mode. And there were some good answers. And one of the best answers is that yes, you can play in creative, but creative will also take away certain things like battery charging and so on. Whereas you can play in creative and survival at the same time. And what you need to do is when you're in your survival save, like this one I have established already, hold down the right bumper, tap Y, and go into admin tools. From here, not only can you adjust the time of day to make it the perfect time of day for you to do your thing, you can also turn on creative mode tools. And invulnerability is also really useful if you're just starting out and you want to avoid some of those things. I also have weather turned off because when I'm building, the last thing I want is a great big Pertum electrical storm rolling in across the landscape and decimating everything I've built. What is this? It's not a tutorial. It's not anything of the sort. It's a DeWolfie one, please, Space Engineers. It's me chilling out for a little bit and starting a build of something. My idea was I want to kind of copy what I did originally. I'll give you a bit of an example. As I said, this is not a tutorial. It doesn't obey the rules of my tutorials, which means that I can play around with what I'm doing. And what I want to do is I kind of want to build a version of, let's see if I can find it. I want to kind of build a version of this for Pertum. This is my Atmo factory miner. It's one of the first few things I've built. And has an Azimuth overclocked ore detector mod on it. So if you're going to do this, you'd be doing this with vanilla features, unless you put mods on. And if you want to know how to do that, just watch any one of my videos that has mods involved. But this thing is basically a drill, survival kit, assembler, some storage, refinery, and that's about it. Some doors on and off, and a way to fly it around. And it doesn't handle very well, but it's not meant to. This thing is literally like a flying factory. So I was thinking that I might do a refined version of this or something, make a little bit more of an interesting base now I've got more parts, and have a base that I can move around. And it was just something fun to try building or just have a play around with over a series of DeWolfie One Plays videos alongside everything else that I do. So there we go. Let's just get rid of this. Boop. Here, as you can see, I've got quite a nice large flat area which I've been using for my mod showcases and my DLC showcases. And talking of the time on Pertum, let's just roll this forwards on this DeWolfie One Plays. Whoops, holding down. There we go. As you can see, you can change the time using admin mode. Want to see what the base looks like at night, but there you are. Bring it forward a little bit more. And that'll do. I have the time as well set to 1 day in the settings. This does mess with my original idea of having a no script solar tracker that just rotates around at the right angle. So be aware, if you use that particular build, you're going to have to change your timing on the rotor to work out how long it takes the sun to move. But yes, this is a good place to start building something. And as I said, the idea is to take all that kind of thing over there with the refiner, etc., and take it to the sky. And I'm thinking possibly some version, maybe not as boxy and long and tall as the one I demonstrated just, but more a version of it that's longer. How do I start building? Well, for a start, we're going to need to think that since we're playing in survival, even though I've got creative mode tools activated, we're going to need to replicate something along the lines of a power source. Now, I do have this base here generating some extra grid energy, but I'm thinking to begin with just something to build off of. And since we're obeying creative mode tools on a survival game, take this up to about this high. And since I've got weather off, I haven't got to worry at all. I can just relax, chill out, and play the game. And hello to the person that is watching. I haven't got my phone fully charged at the moment, so I can't use the Twitch side of things, but I can see you there. And here we have our turbine tower. We can use this to provide power to the grid that we're going to build off of. And that's generally how I provide power to any grid where there's a decent enough atmosphere to do it. And you'll see, we'll take this out quite a distance away from that tower because I want enough room to be able to play around with the size of this thing. And I'm thinking, I mean, this is going to be built completely off on the fly. What you can do as well is, just for the heck of it, you could actually throw in some batteries here just to store residual power coming in off the grid. And as you'll see, charged in 3 hours, and the wind turbines are optimal clearance, so that's a great way of providing power to a grid. I mean, we could have used nuclear reactors, and I could have just spawned in some uranium ingots and just stocked it to the gills with those. But let's look upon this as an early kind of build. And as I said in my preamble, this is going to be over a series of DWolfie 1 plays, because I don't like to go too long with these. The DWolfie 1 plays, I can go, depending, 20, 30 minutes. Anyway, let's look now at something to give us something to build off. We still want this grid to charge since we're going to be using batteries and probably solar panels. I'm going to be using vanilla, including the vanilla ore detector, even though I've got mods for various things on. So you want to find your rotor. Any old rotor will do. This one specifically right here. And we want to get rid of our rotor part. And we're going to grind it down as though we were playing on survival rather than just making it disappear using the left trigger. And we're going to also open this up now. We're going to go to the rotor and we're going to just literally lock it. And then we're going to, do I want this small or large grid? Actually, we'll leave it as large grid thinking about it, because then I can make a much bigger, better thing. But as you'll see with this version, when you add the rotor head, you still have to weld it up because we're playing survival rules, except we don't need the parts to do it. Okay, so what we're going to have here as well is we're probably going to think about building custom landing gear later on. But I want to build this a little higher up than normal. So I'm thinking probably about 3 or so blocks high. And then I'm going to recolor this block by holding the right bumper and pushing down. And I'm just going to I'm going to set the default colors. What color do I want this? Dark red maybe to begin with. Just something to differentiate it from the grey. And we're going to use the Dusty Armor skin from the Wasteland DLC. Ertem. Now, this will be the basis of our floor. We're going to need some way to operate and control this behemoth of a mobile base. And you don't want to go too big with this kind of thing, but you don't want it too small because it will be cramped and so on. Now, we could build in planar mode, but I'm thinking on the fly at the moment, and this is how things work. Planar mode is really quick, though. I mean, if you want to see planar mode in action, press the right bumper in, go to multi-block building, change from line by tapping the right bumper to plane, center the stick, tap RB, and now, when I hold this down, we'll come out 4 blocks from here and back. Make sure you orientate yourself correct so you can see. So come out 4 blocks, pull back, let it go. Four blocks, come back, and let it go. That's planar building mode for you. And you can do that for like the walls as well. So if you wanted the walls really easily, you can literally just be like, well, I want this X blocks high, 4 blocks maybe, 3 blocks, go for 4, and you've got a wall. It's really great if you're building in creative like this, just for prototyping a concept or just for building a base or a box. And the same deal, if you want to get rid of it, all you have to do is select the first block, pull back, make sure you're looking at this last block here, hold down the left trigger while you're doing it, let go, and bam, gone. So this is potentially the space I want to use. So let's have a look at what we could fit in there. What do we need from our production and medical? Well, we don't want to go massively overboard, so what we need to do is think. We're going to need a proper refinery. Now, we can use the refinery that came with the game, or we can switch to the warfare refinery. Now, if you're going to build the refinery in a ship like this, or a mobile base, you may want to leave this back part here clear, because the ports on the back, as I've said before, are for modules that can increase the speed but also the yield. And believe you me, slapping 4 yield modules onto the back of this puppy is literally going to change up the fact you wouldn't need more than, say, 2 refineries. Remember, though, the more you slap on, the heavier it'll be, and also the more power it's going to require. And we're going to take advantage of solar and also wind, because as long as you're connected to the ground with a mobile grid through landing gear, and this can be custom landing gear or regular landing gear, you will create a circuit with that ground and make your wind turbines work. So you can use wind turbines as a way to recharge. We could leave a space like this for this particular industrial refinery. Because what we want is we want some storage on here, and we'll want some industrial refiners. And you have to think, are you going to have a drilling bay as well? And that adds another complication to the whole thing. Do you want a central drilling bay? Do you want something that comes off the back, maybe? Because this, being Space Engineers, doesn't have to be symmetrical. You could make an asymmetrical design. I may decide that I want a drilling module to come off here and maybe even have something like a storage section that feeds off on the side. Or you can make it symmetrical. It's entirely up to you. So looking at our design here, I'm still in plane mode, so I actually want to switch back to line mode. Also thinking where you're going to put the engines. You don't overly want too much storage. And also remember that you may need to build one block out on either sort of side, because what you're thinking of is, where are your walls going? Well, we know there's got to be a wall there. Well, I know there's got to be a wall there. And then potentially this blueprint has to come out like this, has to come across like this, and start to resemble something of a room. Now we're going to have a single door on the way in. And we can't put it central, so we'll just put it anywhere. Probably about there. And we don't need it to be any higher. We can start building out walls here. And don't worry about how it looks. Don't worry about the fact it looks like a block within a block or so on. If you've watched any of my build videos in the past, you've seen things like the Sargasso, which was built literally as rooms inside rooms and so on. And you'll get some warnings as well when you're playing in this mode and building, because eventually you're going to run out of hydrogen fuel. and it's going to start complaining at you. You won't drop out of the air, but it will start whining. So there's that there. Is potentially going to be a storage room. I have to think about piping as well. How are we going to pipe this? Well, we can cut through the walls. We bring this up again. We'll be using conveyors, obviously. And we want them somewhere. And they're going to have to think. We're not using any kind of hydrogen, so we're not worried about kind of an engine room and so on. So if we go from my original concept where we're going to have the refinery in this room here, I'm going to give it enough room to have the modules behind it. Or we could put it against this wall here and extend the ship somewhat, which I might do. So we can always pop it down. And again, the beauty of playing with things like this on creative, when you're learning the game or you're just playing around with things like this, is that mistakes can easily be fixed and new features can be added and you can extend your build accordingly. Like so. And of course, we now have a decent height design for the base because that refinery informs how tall we want these walls to begin with. They're probably going to go higher than that. And also remember that you're going to have to think about thrust. 4 large atmospheric thrusters could potentially lift this grid when it's built. Maybe because we're playing around with this, I could go 6, but then we have to think how we're going to power all that. And as I said, we're going to try and use solar and wind, so this is going to be one of those things where you move this around and then leave it there for a while. And the way I've done this, potentially, I can now move that refinery again. If you're building this properly in survival, though, you will literally be doing a shell of this ship, this base, and then building it back out. So yeah, I can move this one block back. And I'm looking at ways that I can link this. I could go for top-mounted conveyors, or I could go for any numerous way. From the side, well, I said we wanted an assembler, and I happen to love the warfare assemblers. Sorry, heavy industry assemblers even. So I'm tempted to have a couple. So we'll start with linking one there. We'll put one here, and then to link this together, we haven't got to worry about air tightness. Going to go for that. And we've got a nice link there. And these blocks, I do love these. And as somebody mentioned as well, bear in mind with these that they are not airtight on all sides. Only on certain sides are they airtight, and you can see that anything with the plates on. If you need to make them airtight, then you can seal them off using things like the light armor panels. That will help. So we've got our assembler, we've got our refiner. This is, there you go, told you.
Fuel critical.
I know the fuel's critical. We're going to look at some storage. Oh, we've got these small cargo containers here, or we could go for one large cargo container. It depends on what you're going to store. My suggestion would be to store have one large cargo container, or you could break it up into smaller cargo containers. It depends on what your concept for this is. Mine, I am potentially tempted with small cargo containers like this. Have different things stored in them. But then, of course, you're going to be starting thinking, well, do I need to add sorters and so on? And since this is simple compared to complex, we could go for a large industrial cargo container and sort of position it, say, there for now. And atmospherics aren't a thing, so we know that there is a point on these things. Break this open so you can see. There. Which we could then bring a conveyor set. Let's have a look. Yeah, that could work. Idea. I like the idea of the sort of like the almost industrial look of this thing. Out or down. Yeah. It's not pretty, but with Space Engineers, it doesn't have to be pretty. Functionality is key. Plus, you can make cosmetic changes. To see where things need to connect in. I may have missed a thing. As you can see, currently it's yellow. I'm getting closer to my time, so just let me delete that, delete that. I want to look at this here. One way to test this, if you're doing this in Creative, easily switch back to these and you can definitely see which way these connect. There you go. So something was slightly askew there when I placed those conveyors, and I've probably got one slightly wrong. But that's the beauty of being able to play like this in Creative, to prototype something. but you're using survival mode rules, so you haven't got to worry overly much. There we go. So you see that's now connected all the way from storage through to the refiners.
Fuel critical.
And if you want to, you could add a little ladder or even just a small ramp up to there. You don't really need to. Like I said, we wanted the door. And so just before I quit on this first part of this DWolfie One Plays on this build, we'll just throw some swing doors in, the sliding doors, and we have the makings of what's going to eventually be a mobile base. It's going to require some living quarters, and it's going to require an area to pilot from. And so we're going to look at building some control into it. We'll need at least 1 or 2 gyroscopes. And we can look at that next time. So, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the game. Have fun. Stay safe out there. And remember, Grid AI is definitely coming. And it's going to shake up space engineers like never before. This is a real game changer by the look of it. And it's going to be so exciting for me as a content creator to dive into and see how all these new systems work. I mean, you saw what happened with the custom turret controller. This is going to be huge. Anyway, that's all I've got time for. Cheers. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.